Hello everyone and welcome to Blaugrana Everything and welcome back to the channel and to the podcast. This is going to be a little special video about the Ansu Fati situation. Now, what exactly is the Ansu Fati situation? Okay, so I'll start this with a bit of a disclaimer. Generally, I do not tend to be a sensationalist when it comes to things happening in our squad. Like if a player is out of form, I'm willing to accept the fact that it takes a while sometimes for a player to find form again, just as much as, they could just easily have lost it, that little spark that they had. We saw that with Coutinho, and we saw also the opposite with other players who, left Barcelona and kickstarted their careers again. You can think of all the ones who managed to do that. I don't want to dwell too much on that because my focus, like I had said from the start, is going to be here on Ansu Fati. So it's no secret that he's been having a very, very torrid time of things this season. Like we know for a fact, the guy is healthy. We've been hearing issues about there's concern about this concern about that. But one thing that we can certainly say for sure is that Ansu Fati has been healthy. The only time when he wasn't was, of course, that weekend when we lost to Almeria. It was available again, played against Real Madrid, and he played against Valencia just this past weekend. And we know for a fact, generally, that he's been available, and Xavi has just opted to not use him at times. And it's something which maybe the concern regarding his fitness, that is, could have started during the World Cup, because we saw that Luis Enrique basically did not use Ansu Fati. He just took him there more like a placeholder or something, right? He rarely played. He did get some minutes against Japan, I think, and maybe against Morocco, if I'm not mistaken, but generally he was not getting minutes, and everyone just concluded wait, this must be because the kid isn't fit, that kind of thing. That's probably why he wasn't getting picked by Luis Enrique, and he came over with Barcelona and the trend was continuing, despite how we had, heard those reports where it was said that Xavi sees Ansu Fati's role increasing after this World Cup break, for the second half of the season. He'll get more minutes, blah, 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 blah. He started against Espanyol. It wasn't a very good showing, and after that we barely saw him, right? The next time I think we saw something of him was in the Supercopa. I am purposefully not counting those, matches against the really low tier teams in the Copa del Rey, the matches against Ceuta and Intercity. Those games I'm not counting, okay? Because just about anyone could have played in those games. I mean, Hector Bellerin played in those games. So, doesn't count for anything if he played in those games, in my opinion. So, we didn't see much of Fati until Real Betis, and, he actually scored a goal against Real Betis, which could have been a winner if Barcelona decided to not forget how to defend in that tie. But yeah, he took one of the penalties as well and he scored. And you were overall looking at that and thinking, well, this was a positive showing from Ansu Fati. And when Barcelona were just, tormenting Real Madrid at some point, going 3-0 up, you were thinking, well, this is probably as good a time as any to throw Ansu Fati on, maybe get a fourth, that kind of thing. But really didn't see that once again from Xavi. And going on, really, the only time we saw Ansu Fati get starts, in fact, the only reason Ansu Fati has gotten any starts right now since the World Cup break has just been because Robert Lewandowski or Ousmane Dembele, one of the two was out injured or unavailable, and Xavi basically, his hands were tied and he needed to put someone, and that's how Ansu Fati got those starts against Atletico de Madrid, and I forget who else we had played in La Liga during the time that Lewandowski was suspended. Anywho, that was a lot of talking for an intro. But it was necessary because I just wanted to paint a bit of a backstory, right, with everything that's been going on with Ansu Fati, because I feel that the issues that are plaguing him have to do a lot with two things. The first one is a lack of minutes. You cannot deny the fact that this kid has not gotten any minutes. Now, I do not know of any player in world football who keeps their sharpness if they're not getting minutes. That's the first thing. Second thing is, of course, a general lack of confidence. So we're going to get into looking at each of those things and why I feel, depending on how you're looking at things, this really, for me in particular, isn't a worrying situation. Because for some people, they're saying, well, maybe FC Barcelona should cash in on Ansu Fati this summer because you don't know if next year is going to be any better or if it'll be worse. And if it's worse, then you've got a kid who's on higher wages, who's not performing to the level of those wages, and who you could have moved on for some money. And Barca financial situation, this and that, blah and blah. So because of that, that's mainly the reason why I'm here actually making this video because I just wanted to, restore a bit of calm to some of the people who I think are forgetting exactly just how good of a footballer Ansu Fati is when he is on his game. We're going to first of all start by looking at the first issue that I said is plaguing him, and which I believe is a big reason why he's taken so long to rediscover his form, to rediscover his old self. First thing being minutes. So like I just explained here at great length, there are not many games in which Ansu Fati has managed to get a start. In fact, we could go ahead and look at the stats for Ansu Fati this season. Credit to FB Ref for this one. When we look at Ansu Fati's matches played this season, you might think, what are you talking about? He's played 22 matches. That's a lot of matches. And I'll be there saying, yeah, but look closely. Of those 22 matches, only 9 of them have been starts. And of those 9 starts, only 1 has been a full 90 minutes of football. Majority of Ansu Fati's appearances this season, the 13 out of these 22 appearances he's made, have all been as a substitute. And the problem is that it's not coming on as a substitute with like 30 minutes to go. Generally, he tends to come on even later than that. He doesn't see many minutes. When we take the average of the minutes that he's seen across these all 22 matches, it only adds up to about 9 matches. Think about that for a sec. He started 22 games, but he's only played the equivalent minutes of about 9 matches of football. So that, of course, is where your first issue is coming in, because when you've been out of practice as long as Ansu Fati has been, when you've been away as long as he's been from the injuries, and then you're barely getting any minutes, your appearances come in spurts. You get 3 appearances, then you're not seen for like 4, then you get 2, and you're not seen for another 3, then you get 1, and you're not seen for another 2, and then you get what I mean, right? It's very stop start. And that is not helpful for a player. Now, this is a consequence of the decision that Xavi made when he said that he's going to play whoever is delivering, whoever is giving end product on the pitch. Which I understand the reason why you're doing that. You want to promote competition between your players. You want Ferran Torres to be in competition with his teammates in a good way, right? So that, he gives his best when he gets on the pitch. Now, the problem with that is what happens when everybody is out of form, which is exactly what the case was for Barcelona coming into the season. Ferran Torres had no preseason, so when he came, he was looking like a lost sheep. Ansu Fati barely had a preseason, and Xavi Hernandez, for one reason or another, we guess didn't trust his fitness for most of the start of the season. And then you go to Rafinha, who is a dude that's adapting to life in a new place. So really, Barcelona from the beginning were really hanging their hopes on Ousmane Dembele carrying on his form, which he has done. But beyond Ousmane Dembele, everybody else has been out of form. So that's where your first challenge comes in. When everyone is out of form, then who do you pick? And that's probably where Xavi Hernandez's first problem was. Personally, I think he should have agreed to do some kind of, share of minutes between his wingers. Just say, okay, everybody is going to get a guaranteed this many starts, right? But depending on who performs better in their starts, they are going to play 90 minutes. So if I start you and you don't perform well, then your teammate is going to come on from the bench. You're going to get to start the next game as well, but if you still don't perform in that one, then the next game, you can go and be on the bench, and you can, you reverse roles with your teammate, that kind of thing. But the fact that Xavi just decided if you score, you're playing the next game. If you don't score, you're not playing. And with Fati, you could probably even argue he didn't do that, because that Real Sociedad game, Fati came off the bench to score and to assist, and the next game he was back on the bench. So, Xavi just hasn't given the kid the minutes that he needs. And that is what has been a huge factor in what is, ultimately being seen with his confidence, which is probably the biggest issue here. We saw that match against Valencia 2 examples of just how good Fati can be when he's feeling more confident in himself, but also just how bad it can get when he doesn't have the confidence in himself. There was a header which he had clear, open header, no one challenging him, and he completely messed it up, right, during the first half. Then the second half, after that Ferran penalty miss, we saw Ansu Fati play that quick 1-2 with Rafinha, and then, hit the post with what would have been honestly a spectacular goal. But right there we saw that, this kid, it's a confidence issue. And I think the stats back that as well, because when we look at Ansu Fati's shooting stats across his career with FC Barcelona so far, it will probably come as no surprise that right now his shots on target percentage is at the lowest that we have seen from him. In his debut season, he was shooting at 36%. Then next season, he was shooting at a ridiculous 50%. I think 50% of his shots were hitting the target. And the next season, it dropped down just a little bit to 44%. But this year, it's at an all-time low for him of 25.6%. And that, I believe, is where his problem is to start with, because at the moment he is shooting way more than at any point in his career. His shots per 90 right now is sitting at 4.19. Last season we're not really going to count it, even though it was at 4.82. We're not going to count it because last season he only had like 7 appearances. He didn't play more than 7 games, so you can't really say too much from these few appearances, because whenever he came on, usually he would be starting and he'd be getting a lot of the ball. This time around, I think this is a more accurate spread and it's showing a better picture. So he's shooting more often, but the shooting isn't as accurate as it used to be, and this is also reflected in his XG. Currently his XG is sitting at 6 when his actual goals are at 3. So clearly the kid here is having a bit of confidence issues which of course unfortunately will not go away until he has the backing of the manager. And the backing of the manager in this case simply means playing the kid consistently, giving the kid the minutes that he needs, and trusting that he will figure everything that he needs to figure out on the pitch. Just this past weekend, we saw how disappointed Ansu Fati was when he was substituted after Araujo was sent off, despite the fact that he looked like the brightest of the 3-4s Barcelona had during that second half. He looked better than Rafinha and Ferran did during that second half, but he's still the one who got pulled off. And you could see that was a hit to him. That was a big hit to his confidence. Remember, this is still a kid. He's only 20 years old. He's still learning. Of course, you could say, well, it's because Ferran and Rafinha put in more defensive work than Ansu does, and I'm not disputing that, but you're looking again at the greater context of Ansu Fati recovering his confidence and how right now the situation at Barcelona really isn't, or really hasn't been conducive for him to be able to do that. And to maybe wrap up my thoughts on Ansu and give an example of somebody else who found himself in a similar situation to the one that Ansu Fati is in right now, but at the moment has, just doing way better than he has at any point in his career, partly due to the fact that his manager is fully backing him and is giving him the opportunities and the minutes that he needs and playing him in the roles that he prefers. By the way, we didn't mention about how majority of Fati's starts have come as a center forward, a role which he is not familiar with. But the player who I'm talking about who's rediscovered and bettered his form is Marcus Rashford. Look how he was playing last season. Last season, the goals that he scored last season compared to what Ansu Fati has this season, that from 25 matches that Marcus Rashford played last season in the Premier League, he had 4 goals and 2 assists, which is 1 goal more than Ansu has right now and 1 less assist than Ansu has right now. And remember, okay, this is with more matches played, more starts, 4 more starts than Ansu Fati. And that's how Rashford was looking last season. This season, though, is almost untouchable, especially since the World Cup, putting numbers that only the Haalands and the Mbappes of this world and, the Lewandowskis can compare to. And that, I think, is ultimately the final thought with which I'm going to leave anybody, especially any Barca fan, who is looking at Ansu Fati and is thinking maybe it's time to ship him out of the team. I'm saying that you do not want to make that mistake. It's just a matter of time. Ansu will figure out his new, capabilities or whatever it is, even though I don't think that physically he's had any notable decline. If you ask me, he's still able to beat players. He saw that against Ceuta. We've seen him dribble players on occasion. The issue is just with the mental side of it, the confidence. Maybe he should work with Ferran's shrink as well. I don't know. But it's something maybe he should take into consideration, looking beyond trusting in the manager, because clearly I don't think Xavi is going to give him the backing that he might want or that he feels that he deserves in the current situation. And so it will be up to him to rethink things and to try and do things in a different way, which I have no doubts he'll be able to do because he does have the rest of his career on the horizon. And yes, I realize the people who are saying, well, since I went with Bojan as well, he had a few injuries, he was out for a while, Pep told him to go on loan, he didn't want to, then this and that and blah, blah, blah. But I think with Fati, there are a few more differences than they were with Bojan. In particular, Fati does have opportunities to be starting, unlike Bojan, who, had Messi, had Henry, had Eto'o, had Villa, had Pedro ahead of him, and it became very hard to get minutes. Here, I think, with Fati down the left, literally his only competition is Ferran. And you cannot tell me that Ansu Fati is not a better player than Ferran at the moment. I am concerned for Ansu Fati, but in as much as I am concerned, I am not worried. And I do not think that it's time to pull the plug on Ansu Fati, simply because I believe he can get through it. And the evidence of that, I would say, is that if you look at his general play, okay, he is still finding himself in the correct places. He is still getting as many chances, if not maybe even more, than he was before. That's not just because his teammates are looking for him more, which I think isn't actually the case. They're looking for him less these days, but it's because he knows where he's supposed to be. He's got great anticipation, which you will learn is probably the most important attribute that any goal scorer can have, that anticipation to know where you're supposed to be for the big moments when they do arrive or when that big chance does come. And we have seen him have those big chances in those big moments. We saw it at the Bernabeu, right, in that 3-1 loss, back when the game was still a 2-1 and Barca were pushing for the 2-2. Ansu Fati had two very good chances from which he would have equalized. We saw it also against Manchester United at Camp Nou. He forced De Gea into making a very important save to stop the score from going to 3-2. And also, very late on at Old Trafford, we saw him just get under that cross from Ferran, which could have easily been the 2-2. And mind you, he got to that ball before Robert Lewandowski, right? Robert Lewandowski, who is our best striker, he got there before him because of that anticipation. So I would say that ultimately Barcelona shouldn't be too worried about Ansu Fati. As long as they give him the opportunities, as long as they give him the minutes, he will be able to figure it all out. Anywho, that is basically that in as far as my thoughts on this topic. Do let me know what you think, of course, in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube, and if you are listening to the podcasts on Spotify, you can leave your comments in a review, do a review on the podcast, give me 5 stars, because why not? Yeah, because you like this, been listening all this time, give me 5 stars, okay? And then you can just put your comment there in the review and, say what you think Barcelona should do with Ansu Fati. Otherwise, that is basically that for me. Ladies and gentlemen, I thank you once again for tuning in. Have a great day, and Forza Barça.